So I've made a bunch of Samurai Tau, the Sakura. We've got battle suits, we've got infantry. What we don't have is Auxiliary. The Tau use lots of aliens, humans, and all others to help them in their battles, and today we're gonna make some of them.
We've got a couple of comments from people who want us to try and explore different miniatures from different games and different creators. That is exactly what I'm going to do today. The model that I'm painting today is from Piper Makes, an awesome miniature company that makes really cool, unique mecha designs, and is super easy to print as well. We even printed this guy a while back. But this time around, we're gonna add some of Dave's bits to one of their infantry models. And I'm gonna show you guys just how easy it is to make your own Tau Sakura army. So one of the last things that Dave wanted to do for his Tau Sakura armor was to expand it a little bit more, and this included adding in auxiliaries. But something really important to keep in mind is we need a way to make them look cohesive, like they're from the same army. And this is where Dave's bits come in. So Dave designed his bits intentionally for them to be put onto any mini, not just a Warhammer mini. Really, when it comes to Dave's bits, the banners and katanas can be used on basically any type of model. The shoulder pads can too, it just requires a little bit of scaling and perfect fitting. But overall, these bits can be used for any type of mini, and I'm gonna show you how. After cleaning up my Piper Makes model, I went ahead and also printed up some of Dave's bits. We printed a few pieces in different scales so I could find the perfect match. Since this model is already holding a katana, I'm going to skip that bit, but add on a shoulder pad for now, and I'll add a banner later on, but I'll paint that separately.
So I start a lot of projects at home and many of them end up abandoned or unfinished at least. This is a box of such hidden treasures, and inside I have some attempts of some Tau Guevasa and auxiliaries that I've looked at making, but the one I want to make today using some of my own bits and a whole lot of sculpting is actually a Tau Beastman. Now, Beastmen are treated as abhumans, pushed to the fringes of society, never given a chance, never given an education, just assumed as being chaos touched or blighted in some way. But what if one was born on a Tau world? Well, we're about to find out. So to turn a Traitor Guard Beastman from Blackstone Fortress into a member of the Tau Empire would require some significant conversion. Conveniently, while working on the model, I did discover that the head had never been glued in and was in fact push fit only, which meant the head could be separated from the body and allow for some interesting conversion. One of the first things I needed to do was to carve off some of the really obvious chaos detailing, such as the spikes protruding from the flesh of the Beastman, as well as the more rudimentary Imperial rivets and bolts that they have on all of their armor. I also carved away the shoulder pad on his right arm, leaving space for some Tau upgrades later. This model also had a pesky chainmail coif and lots of detailing around the legs that needed to be removed. And with all those nasty chaos icons and sigils removed and all the sort of dirty ragtag equipment that no member of the Tau Empire would have on them gotten rid of, I think this model is starting to look a lot cleaner. But that means he needs a nice shave. So I'm going to take the head and shave off the majority of the beard, leaving him with a stylish goatee. I think that with a Beastman being sort of part cow or goat, the nose ring lends a cattle air to them. Reminds me of livestock and makes me feel generally uncomfortable when I think of a sentient creature in the Tau Empire. So while it could have been a stylish septum piercing that this Beastman got in a Tau tattoo parlor, I thought it would aid the clean aesthetic if I just got rid of it. With the broad chopping and changing done, it was time to get into the green stuff. Now I've been practicing a lot with sculpting lately, and this is another opportunity to really push myself further, creating a lot of smooth armored panels and Tau detailing. I used pure green stuff as my first dabble, creating the iconic Tau chest piece on this Beastman at a bit larger scale. I used a sculpting tool to press in the Tau design at the center and carefully worked back and forth to smooth this part of the model. Once I had a shape I was happy with, I used some isopropyl alcohol to wipe down the surface, which helps to smooth it out and get a clean finish. This stage, while the green stuff was still malleable, I pressed the head into shape just to make sure the hair wasn't going to clash with any of my sculpting. I allowed them to dry and I could move on to stage 2 of my sculpting. I found that if you have time and opportunity, the best way to sculpt with physical mediums is to make sure you do lots of stages, allowing them to fully dry in between. That means you won't be at risk of messing up things you've already made or putting nasty fingerprints in things. With the green stuff dried, I mixed some green stuff and milliput to create a mix that not only cures faster than milliput, but is easier to work with. It truly gets the best best of both worlds. Ready for the second stage of sculpting, I added some extra detailing into the chest panel to make it feel more like the breastplates on Fire Warriors. I then also turned his pants into some gorgeous 3/4 length pants with a nice elastic bottom and puffy silhouette. Getting rid of the ragtag torn appearance of the Beastman's pants was super imperative, but I went for the 3/4 look because I like the idea that as a fellow hooved creature, both the Tau and the Beastman would go for that look of unobstructed feet. This step I also allowed to dry before moving on. And the next major step would be to add all of those Tau armor panels. That includes the knees and the thigh guards as well as the groin plates. Using the green stuff and milliput mix, I carefully sculpted these in, and I decided I wanted a finer effect for the recesses than I had gotten on the chest plate, and for this I used the backside of a sharp scalpel. There was quite a process of going back and forth, making sure I had the shapes I wanted with a toothpick before trimming it with a knife, but in the end I came up with some designs I'm actually really proud of. I think these look very reminiscent of the plates on Tau armor and quite clean. They should look really good when sculpted. With all these elements included, I was actually done for the day, but I couldn't resist taking my model home and creating some green stuff straps, accentuating the belt and adding some connective straps for all of the armor plates. I also gave him a little shoulder pad at this point. Sorry, that was all off camera. But as with sculpting, sometimes you just need to get something done so it can dry. For the back of the Beastman, I had decided to trim off some of the back of his hair so I could fit a Tau Breacher backpack, which did mean once the backpack was in place, I needed to sculpt some strands of hair going down his back as well. I tried to blend these in as seamlessly as possible, but sculpting hair is pretty difficult. However, I do think this will look fine once it's painted. With all the green stuffing conversion done, it was time to do some 3D model conversion. And as the creator of my Sakura bits, I did have the advantage of being able to modify them, and those modifications we're actually going to upload into the bits packs as well. So I made a shoulder pad with a different alignment of plates as if it was flexing in a different direction that would fit on his arm properly, and I also printed a back banner, a katana, and a scabbard. In the hand where I had cut off his bolt pistol, I chopped up a breaching shotgun and glued that into place before I glued all my resin pieces onto the model. Another piece that had been recommended in the comments for my Sakura was to create my little wishing charms as a separate 3D printable asset, and I printed off a few of these and glued them around the body. With all these steps done, I can look back at my Beastman and say I am super stoked with how this has turned out. This is definitely my best, or at least my most accurate conversion I have ever done in terms of my green stuffing. The combination of my 3D printed parts and custom green stuffing work really makes this model my own, and when you look at his surface, there's probably only about 30% of it that's still the original plastic. I can't wait to get this guy painted and leading breaching teams in my Sakura kill team. All of the custom bits that were in today's video were actually designed and made by me. These are amazing for creating custom samurai themed models for any miniature range you choose. And we have some for mechanized things and also a bunch of infantry bits. And they're all available for purchase on the Tabletop Time web store, and the Sakura bits in particular will be 10% off for 1 week only with the code SAKURA. This will be the last time we visit the Sakura Tower for a little while. So if you've been thinking about picking up some custom bits for your samurai models, now is the time to do it. And while you're over there, you could also consider getting some custom Space Bears bits or any of our merch. All of your support in this area really directly supports the channel and helps us make stuff we want to keep making. So if you want to see more digital bits packs, more interesting stuff, more custom designs, the best way to do it is to pick up some of those and show us that you love what we're making. Thank you very much. Remember, click the link in the description and the code is SAKURA. Get your 10% off now.
After a spray of black primer and some grey undertones, it's time for laying down some of those base colours and that brown pin wash. After I was done with the undersuit and the red accents, it was time to move on to those edges and make them nice and crispy with a bright grey. Crispy. Once I was happy with how everything was looking, I moved on to the banner, painting it in a similar style. Then moving back to the model to add some Tau aesthetic with some pink lines on the armour. This also brings back to the fact we want to make sure that this model looks cohesive with the rest of Dave's Tau army. With everything dried, I glued on the banner to the backpack and gave the base a coat of texture paint, flock, and finished it all up with some snow. And with that, I'm pretty much all done here, but let's see what Dave's gotten up to in the meantime.
While for some reason when I think of a goat, the first image that comes to mind is a sheer white goat, I did think that wouldn't create enough contrast or visual interest next to the white armor of the Sakura. That's why I decided for some contrast. Now, while you enjoy some footage of me painting the rest of this model, I wanted to talk about how he fits into the Sakura. As the Sakura often move around with orbital flotillas or distant vessels or the remnants of lost colonies, they pick up all kinds of people and creatures willing to ally themselves with the Tau Empire, and they find themselves working very closely with them. Without the massive combined arms regiments of the entire Tau Empire at their back, when they engage in conflict, they use every resource at their disposal. And this close quarters fighting away from the inner Sept worlds really creates a closer bond between the warriors, where they begin to truly ignore each other's differences and see themselves all as comrades in arms above all else. This leads to some questionable doctrinal changes, such as using auxiliary fighters in and amongst their fire warrior teams as opposed to as separate mercenary companies. This particular Beastman I see as the rude counterpoint to the idea that Tau suck in melee. I love the idea of an Imperial Navy voidsman rounding the corner inside a ship, expecting a Tau fire warrior clumsily flailing towards a melee weapon, and instead seeing a braying Beastman charging towards them with huge muscles and a very sharp looking sword. While this is in no way reflected in the rules, it's cool. And I also love the inclusion of Jenn's drone. I like the idea that because there's less of them and they're often fighting in boarding actions or close confines, they have these semi-autonomous AI robots that fight with them, combining the drone technology with a physical frame for use in corridors that basically leads charges, rounding corners first and saving valuable lives. So I think as I build more teams, especially Tau Breacher teams, I'll be including these robots, at least one of in each squad. As for the Beastman, I think he's a little bit more special. I want to show that these creatures in these situations are still rare even within the Tau Empire, and finding and educating a Beastman to be a noble and honorable warrior within their numbers, while an option, isn't common. So perhaps for my next conversion for a crazy Tau auxiliary, I should do a Falinid. But that's enough lore. I think I'm getting close to finish, so why don't we have a look at these new Tau auxiliaries for my Sakura Tau. As always, a big thank you to our patrons for all of your support. We wouldn't be able to do this without you. We've recently been doing a weekly vlog update behind the scenes on the channel, as well as our monthly mini review. So there's heaps of exclusive content to get access to if you consider joining our Patreon. There's also an exclusive mini Discord just for you to hang out in and meet like-minded people. So if you're interested in joining our Patreon, links are also in the description. Thank you once again. This has been a super fun process. I hope you enjoyed our Tau auxiliary. Stay tuned in the future for more videos, and make sure to like, subscribe, and if you're after some of our bits at 10% off, use the code Sakura, links are in the description, and that'll be for 1 week only, so check it out now. And that's it for Tau for a little while. So if you want more Tau, scream and shout in the comments, but otherwise, it's time to get chaos.